What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to the Versus series. This is the series where I take similar elements from a Call of Duty game, I put them side by side, take a deep look at their stats to find out which one is best. And in today's episode, we've got another three-way, and we're going to be looking at what is the best semi-automatic rifle in Modern Warfare. The FAL, the SKS, or the EBR-14. Now keep in mind, most of this will be focused around Warzone, however all of these numbers translate perfectly to multiplayer as well. But let's just hop right into it and start it off with some of the most important stats, and the first one is rate of fire. Now with the FAL, it has a rate of fire cap of 500 rounds per minute, then the SKS is quite a bit slower at 328 rounds per minute, and then the EBR follows just behind that at 297 rounds per minute. So between these three, the FAL has a significant advantage in the rate of fire department, assuming you have a decent trigger finger, although for most people with a decent trigger finger, 500 rounds per minute is no problem. And since we're talking about semi-autos, I did want to point out in Modern Warfare, if you are able to spam that trigger faster than the fire rate of a gun, it will actually buffer that next shot, and therefore you can get that smooth, consistent fire rate at the fire rate cap. And I think this is one of the reasons I often get accused of using a modded controller anytime people see my FAL gameplay, because it looks so smooth and consistent. This is just due to the fact that with my trigger finger, I'm able to fire above that 500 rounds per minute quite consistently. But that's rate of fire. Now let's move on to damage. Now I did want to focus on the upper torso damage here. Keep in mind, you do get different multipliers for different parts of the body. But with the FAL, up close you deal 78 damage, which is way more than the SKS and EBR, and that's quite interesting because it also has a significantly faster fire rate, so it does seem kind of backwards there. But after that 78 damage, then it deals 54 damage, and then it drops all the way down to 40, which is the lowest amount of damage at the longer ranges out of these three rifles. With the SKS, it's also worth noting that you get a really consistent damage profile. Whether you're up close or at a distance, it doesn't really matter, you're still dealing around that 55 damage. Now, what this means for our DPS values, or damage per second, to the upper torso, is with the FAL, we have over double the DPS up close. You can literally kill somebody twice over with the FAL before you can kill them with an SKS or EBR, assuming upper torso shots. Then, even at longer ranges, the FAL does drop off considerably, down to 333, but this is still better than the SKS and the EBR. Now, as for our minimum time to kill potential, keeping in mind this is in the maximum damage range, so it's relatively close quarters. Without any armor, the FAL kills in 120 milliseconds, which is extremely fast for this game. Then the SKS is 183 milliseconds, which is still a very fast time to kill, definitely a very competitive time to kill. And then right behind that, we have the EBR at 202 milliseconds, which again, very competitive time to kill. But that's without armor. Now let's throw 3 armor plates into the equation. The FAL kills in 360 milliseconds in this situation. The SKS drops all the way down to 732 milliseconds, which is a very slow time to kill. And the EBR is even slower at 808 milliseconds. So it seems pretty clear that at least within the maximum damage range, the FAL is completely dominant here, and the others don't even come close. But there is a lot more to consider aside from just this close range maximum damage. And the biggest thing is the range. So let's have a look at our damage ranges here. And I'm not going to dive into all the nitty-gritty details of the body multipliers and everything here, but I did display them for you, so you might have to pause it if you want to get a really close look. But just know all of these rifles have a one-shot kill potential to the head, assuming no armor. However, the FAL loses that ability beyond 18.75 meters, and the SKS loses that ability beyond 50 meters, whereas the EBR maintains that one-shot kill potential to the head all the time, as long as the enemy doesn't have armor. So it's pretty clear looking at the ranges here, the FAL is absolutely dominant up close. There's no question whatsoever, the FAL is just better up close. However, you can see that the range values for the SKS and EBR are significantly better than the FAL, so they definitely start to shine a little bit more at longer ranges. But remember, the FAL has a significantly faster fire rate, and therefore it still remains competitive at longer ranges compared to the SKS and EBR if we're just looking at that raw killing potential, assuming perfect accuracy. So this is where we need to get into the next section, and this is recoil, because all of this power and these damage ranges don't mean a whole lot if you can't hit your shots consistently. And you can see here very clearly the FAL has way more recoil than the SKS and the EBR. It kicks pretty strong to the right while also kicking upwards, and it also bounces around a fair amount, so it is a bit difficult to control at those longer ranges. Whereas the SKS is absolutely the best in this area. It's only really got a bit of recoil after the first shot, and then all of the rest of the rounds go in a really nice tight group. And then finally with the EBR, we do get a pretty big jump after our first shot. And again, just like the SKS, after that first shot, you get a pretty tight grouping. So combining that range chart with these recoil plots, you can really see that the SKS and the EBR are definitely going to be better choices for longer range situations, and the FAL definitely starts to fall apart here. Now, circling back to ranges, I did want to touch on the longest barrels as well, because these are really common attachments to use in Warzone. With the FAL, we have the XRK Marksman barrel, which can increase our ranges by 25%, which is a great boost, and I highly recommend using that on the FAL for Warzone. Then with the SKS as well as the EBR, they both have the 22-inch barrel. That's the longest barrel in both of these situations. And with both of these, they give us a 30% boost to our damage range. But in these cases, I would say that it's not really necessary to use that longer barrel simply because our damage values up close compared to longer ranges, they're not really significantly different. And when you start factoring armor into the equation, it often doesn't even change the number of shots it takes to kill. And this is where we're also going to circle back to damage a little bit, because I wanted to show you this effect in action. So with this chart, I wanted to show you guys how many shots it would take to kill, depending on how many armor plates the enemy has, and depending on whether or not you were up close or at a distance. And you can see with the FAL, there isn't that much of a discrepancy when there's no armor involved. It's just going to be 2 to 3 shots to kill, depending on the range. However, when we have 3 armor plates equipped, it's going to be a 4-shot kill up close, which is awesome against 3 armor plates. However, in the longest damage range where it only deals 40 damage, it's now going to take you 7 shots to kill. Whereas comparing that to the SKS and the EBR, assuming you're getting the upper torso shots with the SKS or anywhere in the torso with the EBR, it's going to be exactly the same number of shots to kill regardless of the distance. You could be at point blank range or at 100 meters, it doesn't matter. Both of them are a base 2-shot kill, and then with every armor plate you add, it's going to add an extra shot to kill. And this means a fully armored enemy is going to take you 5 shots to kill, no matter if they're right up close to you or really far away. Again, assuming you're hitting the upper torso with the SKS or anywhere in the torso with the EBR. So this is why you don't really have to bother with the longer barrels on the SKS or EBR if you don't want to, whereas with the FAL, I would highly recommend sticking to that longer barrel. As for the next thing I wanted to look at that I felt was really important in this particular comparison, this is headshots. Headshots are very important with these guns. And you can see here, the FAL only has a 1-shot kill potential to the head if the enemy has no armor plates, and it only applies to those really close range situations. And at longer ranges, you don't get an insane headshot damage with the FAL. You're only dealing 55 damage to the head, which isn't that crazy. Whereas with the SKS, we deal a much more consistent amount of damage to the head up close compared to at a distance. And then finally with the EBR, this is the big strength of the EBR over these other guns, is it deals a lot more damage to the head. So even if the enemy has 1 armor plate on and full health, you can still get a 1-shot headshot all the way out to 62.5 meters, which is awesome. And if they have 2 or 3 plates, it doesn't matter. It's still just going to take you 2 shots to the head to get a kill with the EBR. Whereas with the SKS, if they have 3 armor plates, it's going to take you 3 shots to the head to get a kill. But now that we have all of those really important stats out of the way, let's get into some of the more minor stats that are still important. And let's kick it off with our aim down sight time. With the FAL as well as the SKS, we get the same aim down sight time at 284 milliseconds, which isn't so bad. Whereas the EBR-14 is noticeably slower at 317 milliseconds. Then when it comes to movement speed, they're all right around the same range at about 94%. Magazine capacity, this is where the FAL and the SKS clearly beat out the EBR. The first two have a 20-round magazine, whereas the EBR has a base 10-round magazine. And then finally, looking at our reload times, the FAL reloads the slowest at 1.94 seconds, followed by the SKS at 1.55 seconds, and then the fastest is the EBR at just 1.34 seconds. Now, this is a great time to also note something very important in Warzone, especially Battle Royale, and this is the FAL uses assault rifle ammo, whereas the EBR and the SKS, they both use sniper ammo. And this is very important because, if I'm not mistaken, you can carry 210 assault rifle ammo in reserve, whereas you can only carry 40 sniper ammo in reserve. So when you're using the FAL, you don't usually have to worry too much about your ammo count beyond the first couple minutes of a game, because you're going to have so many in reserve, and there's going to be assault rifle ammo laying around everywhere. Anytime you get a kill, they're likely to have a ton of assault rifle ammo on them, and there's almost never really a shortage of assault rifle ammo. Sniper ammo, on the other hand, especially if you're using a semi-auto, this can go very quickly and it can be a lot more difficult to find. And this is actually a really big deal while playing Battle Royale if you are trying to use the SKS or the EBR as your primary weapon. You always have to be thinking about how much ammo you have. You always have to be searching for more sniper ammo or asking your teammates to search for sniper ammo for you and share it with you. And that's just not something you have to worry about with the FAL. So that's a huge advantage to the FAL in the context of Battle Royale, at least. And with that, I'm going to share with you guys my current preferred classes for these three guns while I talk about which one I feel is best. I'm not really going to talk about the classes in great detail just because they're fairly straightforward. But when it comes to the FAL, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that this gun is by far the best of these three, at least from 0 to 18.75 meters, or about 25 meters with the XRK Marksman barrel and monolithic suppressor on there. The other two guns don't even come close. Like, they're not even in the same league at this point. However, beyond that range, the lines start to blur at least a little bit, because it's much harder to hit your target with the FAL compared to the other two, simply due to that recoil, and also you drop off to that minimum damage range fairly early on in comparison to the marksman rifles. And in my opinion, the FAL, even though it is extremely powerful up close, I really just don't like using it beyond, I would say, about 30 to 40 meters. Anything beyond that, and the recoil just gets a little bit too out of control, and I would much rather have a sniper rifle or a marksman rifle in my hands there. So if we're looking at longer ranges, the question now starts to become SKS or EBR, which one is better in this situation? And while these are both quite similar, they're very close in a lot of ways. For raw consistency, I would go with the SKS, because you don't really need to worry about precisely aiming for the head or anything. You just try to hit your center mass shots. You try and hit them in the torso. You're a little bit more accurate than the EBR. You've got a better magazine capacity than the EBR and a better fire rate, so it's a bit more forgiving if you happen to miss a shot. So yeah, in those situations, the SKS is definitely a little bit better than the EBR, in my opinion. But if we're looking at things a little bit more specialized, and we try to line up our headshots more often, this is where the EBR starts to gain a bit more of an advantage over the SKS. So if you are the type that really likes to line up that precise shot to the head, while also having the ability to spam shots to the body if needed, then you may end up preferring the EBR over the SKS. My problem with this line of thinking, though, is if you are the type that wants to line up that headshot, then you might as well just use a Kar 98 or one of the other sniper rifles that has that guaranteed one-shot kill potential no matter how much armor the enemy player has on. And to me, this really weakens the argument for ever using the EBR-14, and this is why, out of the three, it's absolutely the lowest on my list, and I have no intention of really ever using it aside from situations where I'm making a video and I need gameplay for it. So in all here, at close range, absolutely, of course, the FAL is the clear choice. But when you start to get to longer ranges, this is where I would lean a bit more towards an SKS. And honestly, I do think the SKS is really underrated in its power. However, the one big drawback that I really think prevents a ton of people from ever using the SKS, or the EBR-14 for that matter, is the fact that it uses that sniper ammo, and therefore there's just no reason to risk it. You might as well use a really accurate full auto assault rifle that you're never going to run out of ammo with. But with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, between these three semi-autos, which one do you think is best and why? Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of this series, I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.